Yeah, I did not feel much sympathy for this character, to be honest, throughout this entire movie, man. He was just, yeah, the degenerate, evil, tyrant,
He was
all the sort of words.
not a man you want to cross paths with. Poor Tommy.
Definitely not, man. But I guess before we get into it, man, because we're going to do obviously scene reactions and all that good stuff, man. But what were your overall thoughts about this movie, man? Definitely very different. Yeah, definitely a critic's darling. This movie's won tons of awards, and we can sort of see why. But what do you think about the movie, man? Like, what were your first thoughts?
Man, I think this is just unlike any other thing I've seen in cinema before, whether Western or otherwise. This whole kind of examination of the master-slave dynamic, maybe it's been done, but not in the way this portrays it, because there is a kind of terrifying and disconcerting element to this beyond just one person in domination of another person. Like the things that Tommy has to do, his feelings towards his master, it's all just so strange and inexplicable, and maybe particularly so for a Western audience like us, because this is not a reality that we ever grew up in. And so it just feels it's a foreign world for me. And that just kept me hooked the entire time, man, because I just couldn't piece it together and understand how this relationship worked, but it kept me glued on the screen, man. So, I mean, I was riveted from start to end, man. There was not a dull moment in this for me. So got to give it props for that.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. It's great point. It's definitely one of the more unique movies I think I've seen. To be honest, to really examine this kind of relationship and sort of, I guess, the power, like struggle between the two. And I guess it's not really a struggle. It's just about how much power sort of
terrifying amounts
has basically on Tommy. Like it's frightening.
It's absolute.
Like it's there's points in this movie that I was actually uncomfortable watching. Like it was a hard watch at times to see just how much control that Patel, Mammootty's character has on sort of Tommy. Like it's really, really sad, to be honest, in some ways.
Tommy has no autonomy over his life. It is just completely at the whims of his master, and not just his life, his wife's life as well. So this is harrowing at times.
Yeah, no, and I mean, the movie does a great job of sort of showing how that sort of evolves over time, right? Because he doesn't start like this. I mean, he's definitely very, I guess I don't know if timid's the right word, but he doesn't really stand up for himself much. He has,
I think he
a few issues in his own life. I think he mentions about marrying late or something like that, and obviously, I think there's some caste issues as well, which I play. Because I think, well, I don't know if they speak about it like explicitly. There is a few things about religion which they talk about. I think in terms of, I think he's Christian in like a Hindu society, and there's a whole concept behind that with the whole fish and all that stuff. Which there's a whole other side which I don't know if I really understood what was happening with that. To be honest,
no, there's probably a layer of like social context and historical context that we would just be lacking, but this is the kind of thing, if the audience has this context, we'd obviously value it, but it's unlike anything I've ever seen.
No,
before.
Definitely, man. It's really, really. I mean, there's a few characters, but obviously the movie the central premise is around these two characters. Basakar, Patella. I think that's. I don't know if they ever actually call him that. They just keep calling him Patel. Or at least in our subtitles, that's what they're called.
Yes.
Yeah. And then Patel, Tommy, obviously, and there's, I guess, but it is interesting to see how much influence that Patel sort of has on sort of the society. Like this is like a dictatorship in some ways, like a tyrant.
He runs this town.
Yeah, it impacts everyone's lives. Like it's ridiculous, man.
Yes.
But yeah, man, I think we can probably start off with some of the scenes because I think there's a lot to sort of examine with this one, man. And I do want to talk about some of the filmmaking as well because I think it was pretty brilliant of how what this director sort of done. Adoor Gopalakrishnan. I don't know how many movies he's done. I don't think we've done any movies from him, to be honest. Definitely a new name for us.
But you're absolutely right that this man already seems in control of the camera and knows what he's doing. Like he feels like a very accomplished director with this film because it is just everything seems like it's being done for a reason and there are choices made for a particular reason to have an impact. And so it just seems like this is a very experienced filmmaker who's really like displaying his craft as well as telling a really interesting story.
Yeah, definitely. He doesn't have a huge filmography, or at least I can't really tell what a lot of these movies.
Interesting.
Like just on the Google search, a lot of them don't even have posters. So I don't know if they're independent movies or something like that, or.
Wow. Okay.
I guess he was doing mostly movies in the 80s and 90s. So I haven't seen, and even a movie from the 70s.
Right. Okay.
But so I don't know if he's so prominent right now, but I mean, he's obviously left a legacy with this movie, which that's the other thing I like about this movie.
Absolutely.
Actually, even though it's from 94, like, because the theme is so unique in itself, I feel like it's just timeless in that way, you know?
Yeah,
I feel like it's aged.
It is like no, that's right. It's like a capsule in time of what maybe the world was like in a particular time and in a particular part of India. And if that is a kind of accurate reflection, that in itself is timeless.
Yeah. Definitely, man. Well, let's jump onto some scenes. I'm going to watch this first one, man, which is a pretty, man, talk about an introduction.
Hey. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬಾರೋ ಬಡ್ಡಿ ಮಗನೇ.
I can already just sense the anger and kind of rage and arrogance.
I love how they introduced Mammootty's character without showing him first. It's just his voice is so powerful.
Yeah.
you can already tell what he's like.
Yes.
Oh, man.
ഇവിടെ വാടാ നായിന്റെ മോനെ.
Brutal.
എന്താണടാ നിന്റെ മട്ടേ കയ്യില്? ഒന്നുമില്ലേ. പിന്നെ എന്തിനാടാ പട്ടി നീ ഇവരെ കൈ പുറകിൽ പിടിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നത്?
Terrifying, man.
Such an imposing presence.
നിനക്ക് ടൂറാനും മുട്ടുന്നുണ്ടോ?
ബഹുമാനിക്കേണ്ടവരെ കണ്ടാൽ നിനക്ക് ബഹുമാനിക്കാൻ അറിഞ്ഞൂടെ?
ഇങ്ങ് അടുത്തു വാടാ.
Oh, man.
യജമാനനെ ദയ കാണിക്കണേ.
അവന്റെ ഒരു അശ്രീകരം പിടിച്ച ഇരിപ്പ് കണ്ടപ്പോഴേ ഞാൻ വിചാരിച്ചതാ പട്ടേ ഒരു അവനിട്ട് രണ്ട് കൊടുക്കുമെന്ന്. അവന് വന്ന് ഇരിക്കാൻ കണ്ട ഒരു സ്ഥലമേ. എണീറ്റ് നിൽക്കടാ പട്ടി. നീ എവിടെ നടാ?
വയനാട്ടിൽ
കുടിയേറ്റക്കാരനാണല്ലേ? നീ എവിടെ താമസിക്കുന്നു?
ചിലമ്പാടിയില്.
എത്ര ഏക്കറയുണ്ട് കയ്യേറിയത്?
5 ഏക്കറുണ്ട്.
അപ്പൊ നീ മോശക്കാരനല്ല. നീ ഒറ്റക്കാണോ അതോ
കെട്ടിയോളും ഉണ്ട്?
Oh, man.
ഓഹോ ചെറുപ്പവാ? നിന്റെ ഭാര്യക്ക് എത്ര വയസ്സുണ്ട്?
You can just feel the fear. Man, such a disturbing scene. Like, I mean, yeah, just to start like that.
What an entrance for the Mammootty character.
I don't know. What I mean, like, yeah, just the way he talks, like the scowl he has in his voice, like it's such like a, yeah, you feel nothing but fear. It feels like when sort of hearing him talk, and in contrast, you just see Tommy's character, who's just the complete opposite. Like, it's just worlds apart, you know.
He, like, as soon as he hears Patel's voice, it's almost like he's already submitted to him, because there's just like a complete fear in him. He's walking slowly. His interaction shows that he's fearful and meek. And like that relationship has already been established of one man completely dominating the other man. It is terrifying, man. And then, just the scowl on Mammootty's face, the almost hatred he has, the arrogance he has, like this is his town and he's going to do what he pleases. The silence around him as he's talking, like no one's going to interrupt this man. Like just he absolutely, this is his town, and it's people play by his rules.
Yeah, no, I think you mentioned the point silence. That's another great point, because this movie has a lot of silence in it. I feel like even in that scene, it's like drawn out. Like it feels like it's here's a voice. He takes some time to look around, then he slowly walks up to him, and we go with him on that journey. Like we're following Tommy's slowly walking.
Yes.
Like we're also slowly following this movie, and it does that a lot. There's not much in terms of like the score with this movie. Like I feel like most of the sounds are just like the natural sounds of wherever he is in the countryside. And I think we had discussed before, this is like in the 60s around that time. So it's kind of a period piece, I guess, for like rural Kerala / Karnataka.
Feels like it,
where I think the setting is basically the forest of Karnataka, I think, when there's migrants or something like that.
Right. Yes, yes.
Yeah, again, I just love this sort of, I guess the creative choice to not overwhelm us with sort of music and, overwhelm our senses and just sort of let us focus on sort of, the terror that's happening in front of us. And that's more than enough.
It's like you don't need music, just let Mammootty do his work, because he is just such a commanding presence as well. When he stands up from his armchair and walks towards Tommy, you must just, like the fear that must be in Tommy, seeing this big imposing man with his like goons surrounding him, but just physically dominant as well over him. Like that would be a terrifying position to find yourself in.
That's the thing about Mammootty's performance, I think, which is pretty incredible. It's like, we normally like, especially in modern movies and stuff like that, especially as of today's age, you see like, when a big dramatic scene is coming up, it's amplified by cinematics, by the music, the score, the cameras, whatever they're doing. This is like, Mammootty, you have to do this all on your own, because we're not going to glamorize this. This is going to be you. It's going to be raw, authentic. This is what it's going to feel like. And that sort of creates an intimacy, I feel like, with this sort of character and this sort of scene.
It does.
Because like we just see the two characters, we see a background, and I've seen a lot he does in this movie, into which I've not seen too much of from a cinematic point of view, is like he does this thing where he uses like a sharp focus versus like in the background.
Softer.
We see that a little bit there as well. Like when when Mammootty's in front, you sort of see his lackeys, and it's clear that the directors made it like, so this guy's front and center, and the people in the background are kind of faded. It feels like they're like shadows almost.
Yes. And so you kind of really just get the focus on the character at the center of all of the camera's energy and the director's skill is being put into that character, and they're really taking that front of center to every scene that's going on. And that makes sense, because this is a film primarily about people and people's relationships with one another. That's the whole gist of this movie. It's not about kind of broader plots or anything. Yeah, there's some stuff that happens towards the end that almost seems like a plot kind of narrative happening, but it's ultimately just about how two people interact with one another and how that affects the people around them as well. So that's an excellent directorial choice for a film like this.
Definitely, man. Like, the rawness, and I think just being in like so we get a little glimpse into the environment that they're in as well. And I think the setting of this movie is extremely important. And I wanted I'm guessing because this is based on a book. So, I've got to give some credit to the writing and things like that, and the original source material as well. I'm not sure if it was lifted, as per the book, if like the book also has them in sort of this kind of environment, this sort of desolate, urban, this desolate kind of isolated environment. But like in terms of just bringing that to life from a book to screen, done a fantastic job, because you can even tell from like the costume design and sort of what the different characters are wearing. Like Mammootty's character looks like he's somebody that's like, on top, because he's the only one wearing a shirt, like everyone else is wearing like just rags and they're wearing the dhotis. And his one is obviously, torn up and he's embarrassed by it.
Of course.
It's pretty incredible. And even the whole way it's done, like I think it was like when we're looking at Mammootty, a lot of the time we're looking up at him. And when we're looking at Tommy, we're looking down at him. Even that scene when he kicks him, it's kind of like from a lower angle and we see him fall, but then we're looking down on Tommy.
Yes. What a great point. That's right. You can see where this man stands in the social ladder, Tommy, in comparison to Patel.
What was the whole thing with his, like the armchair of his? It doesn't have one. He doesn't rest his arm. Is that just for quick access to the gun? Is that the reason why for it?
Maybe. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Like, that armchair gets a lot of screen time because he basically sits outside the shop drinking the whole time and causing trouble. But yeah, I'm not sure.
I think it must be something like that because you'd think that he'd be in a more grander chair or something like that, or it doesn't look tarnished. But it's obviously strategic in that he sort of.
And there's only one. There's only one. He's the only one sitting. Everyone else is just kind of at his disposal and standing around at his beck and call.
It is kind of like a throne, I guess. And like you see, his lackeys, which is, I guess, give him more power. I guess like that. I guess that's their role in the movie. Like they're really, because they don't really have much character of their own, like individually, but they're really just there to give more strength to Patel. It seems like.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point because you might remember that there's an interaction at some point between the movie with the priest and Tommy, and the priest and his friend kind of say Patel wasn't always like this. He was really innocent, but he was like flattered and corrupted by other people who wanted to live their own lives. So I wonder if in their own way, these lackeys are kind of spurring Mammootty's character on, because there's even times when Mammootty's like, I don't want to get involved in that. And they're like, oh, come on, you can go beat him up and take his wife, and Mammootty's like, oh, all right, why the hell not?
Yeah.
So they're kind of almost spurring him on at times. So I feel like they do have a bit more influence than just being goons, but you don't get to see that in like a whole lot of detail. So that's an interesting tidbit that I would have loved explored a little bit more, because I feel like everyone is getting something out of this relationship with Patel. And which is really fascinating.
Definitely. And I wonder if that was an aspect covered in the books or something like that. Like if that was in the original source material where they actually go into his sort of upbringing and his background. Because, that's a great point. I didn't even sort of think about that, how they are sort of more than just goons. They're kind of just like, hey, we sort of add to your corruption. Because, there is that scene when, that's a good one. I think it's another one where I think like he sees like some young girl walking past and is like, oh, that's, a young girl who just got married. I think they spur him on at that moment too. It's like, who cares?
Yes, they did. I think that's the one I think of. You
can take her. Like, why not? And then he's like reluctant at the start, but then they sort of push him to do it. So, it's fast because we do see a sort of transition for him as well. Like he does, which is why I really like the start, because we see like at the start for sort of what he's like, and he is like, top dog and the most despicable person in the world. But then we see that sort of transform, especially when he loses power towards the end. And we sort of see who he actually, I guess, is closer to. I don't know if that's who he actually is, because he also...
Yes. I think so, like who he actually trusts.
Because he's a nuanced character, because they do also show, like he also does deal with grief in some way, right? With his, I guess, the struggle with him.
I think that's right.
Wanting to, and then eventually murdering his wife. In some ways. So that's an interesting concept to explore, and we'll definitely react to the scenes, and we can probably talk about that more during those scenes, I think.
Yeah. Let's
jump on to the next one, man. Let's see what we have next.
Another Mammootty beatdown.
ಇವಳು ನನ್ನ ಹೆಂಡತಿದ್ದಾನೆ. ಇವಳು ಈ ಎರಡು ಮಕ್ಕಳನ್ನ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಈ ಹುಡುಗನ ಜೊತೆ ಓಡಿ ಹೋದ್ಲು. ಈ ಪಿಳ್ಳೆಗಳ ಗೋಳು ತಡೆಯಲಾರದೆ ಎಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲೋ ಹುಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅಲ್ದೆ ಕೊನೆಗೆ ಮಡಿಕೇರಿಯಿಂದ ಹಿಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದೆ.
So he's in the shadows.
Jeez. And that really does feel like a
ನೀನೊಬ್ಬ ಗಂಡಸೇನು? ಅವಳು ಓಡಿ ಹೋಗೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಾಯ್ತು? ಅವಳ ನಾಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನಿನ್ನಿಂದಾಗಲ್ವಾ? ಅವನ ಕಟ್ಟುಗಳನ್ನು ಬಿಚ್ಚು. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬಾರೋ.
It's again that slow motion walk. It's like a parallel.
Yeah, it's kind of this terrified walk where you don't know what's awaiting you.
That's God, man.
ಹೇಳೋ ಮೇಲೆ ಓಡು. ಇನ್ನು ಇಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲಾದ್ರೂ ಕಂಡ್ರೆ
Just the natural sounds, man. I think they just add so much to the ambience of this movie.
Yeah, just
ಹೆಂಗಸರನ್ನ ಹೊಡೆಯೋದು ನಾಚಿಗೇಳು. ಇಲ್ದಿದ್ರೆ
You can see
ನಿನಗೂ
Tommy in the
ಸಿಕ್ತಿತ್ತು.
background there, right? Just in the shadows. Like it's such. It's
yeah,
ಸುಮ್ನೆ ಮುಚ್ಕೊಂಡು
completely in the
ಬಿದ್ದಿರು.
shadows. Yeah, I didn't even notice that.
ಇನ್ನು ಇಂಥದ್ದೇನಾದ್ರೂ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ
I think.
And just letting that crying linger, man.
Yeah, and I think showing the kids is important as well. Oh, man. Just,
Man.
I mean,
Not a man you want to ever have
No,
to deal
not
with.
at all.
That is
no,
brutal.
man. Like he was like, I don't know if he was like getting off on it or like what he was doing, but he was like, it was this weird thing where it's like he doesn't show that he's like enjoying it necessarily. But he feels like it feels like it's something he has to do in a way, I guess. And he's just, this is the way things have to be. Even though, whatever the guy he's beating up is doing basically what he's doing, so there's a lot of sort of contradictions and the hypocritical nature of Mammootty's character, I guess, in that. But I guess he's
That's a
just
good point.
above all, and I guess that's what that scene is interesting because they have sort of his wife Saroja is in the background, and sort of like what the whole scene there is basically like what she's going through, in a way too, because she's seeing somebody do this.
Yeah.
She's involved just as much as he is, basically in her own way. So it's like kind of like now Tommy's also wrapped up in this world as well. It's kind of like what that's sort of showing as well.
They're both caught up in his orbit, but they have no control over him. Like they just are witnesses to his behavior with no agency themselves. That scene just makes it seem like Patel is the judge, jury, executioner of this town. He makes all the rules. People come to him to resolve their problems, and he just has complete control over the people who live over here, and his authority is absolute. And as you were saying, like there are rules he wants to impose on other people, but he doesn't follow those rules. He's above the law here. He can do whatever he wants, but everyone else, they better follow kind of the rules here. I mean, the reason he kind of enslaves Tommy almost is because he's encroached on his land or something. And so he feels entitled to take out his anger on him because he's done something wrong in his eyes. So like this just shows what a total control that Patel has over this town, and people come to him for help, I guess, and to resolve issues. So he's not just a menace, but he's also kind of this leader type figure in their community. He's not just coming in and out to try and wreck people's lives. He's actually a central part. Everything revolves around him, which, I guess is just the way it is in this place, and what a terrible person to have kind of at the head where no one can really challenge him. Yeah,
honestly, credit to Mammootty for playing these kind of roles like over and over again, because this is, I mean, there's a lot of parallels between this movie and the movie we actually just last covered, Valeri Manikiam, where he was also, I mean, he's playing two characters in that one, but one of the characters in that one, I think it's Haji was his name. He was the one that was sort of also in a similar way, like the tyrant landlord who they all sort of revered
Yes.
and went to
Yes.
for their problems. But he also was taking women, left, right, and center. And I think in that movie he did pretty similar like brutal things. Like I remember he made a guy like run with a bull or something like that while his brother was whipping him.
Oh yeah, like straight up torture. Yeah, not just beating him up. Yes,
correct.
With his brother. Yeah.
So could I for just reading the scripts and being like, we're gonna like they're gonna show you in the most despicable way possible. Are you cool with that? He's like, yeah, sure.
I'm curious as to whether at this point in his career whether he had played many villains. Because this is before the movie we watched previously, right? So this is somewhat early on in his career, but he would have probably done a lot of movies by this point. But like, how big a turn was this from what audiences expected of him? Because if he had kind of played a hero before then, or kind of your everyday man, and then came out with this would be a complete 180.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Would be shocking.
Guys in the comment section would love to know. Let us know if this is Mammootty if this is his first villainous role, or if this was like the one that really pushed him into being more of a villain. Did this sort of change his career direction a little bit? Because it's different for someone like, we normally see like heroes play heroic roles and like the saviors. So for him to just be able to alternate between as evil as it gets, here to basically, playing basically a leading man in, I'm guessing, most of his movies, especially in like the 90s and stuff like that, probably around this time period where he was probably playing, romantic leads and, it's just a typical sort of hero. So it's interesting to see, but just his role again was fantastic in this. And again, this is what, Mammootty does this really well. I feel like this is a role that I think, I don't know if the director made this movie with Mammootty in mind or adapted this sort of movie with Mammootty in mind, but he chose the perfect actor for it because, with this kind of role, the physical body language is required more than anything else. I feel like it's the facial expressions are there and that's important, all that stuff. But the emotions that he has to show are not. Obviously, he does a great job in the second half of also showing us that side. But in this particular scene, for example, where he's sort of showing his physicality and his presence, it's just something that I think he does, which other people just can't do as well. Like the way he's kicking and moving his head sort of up, and looking really fierce. He just has this demeanor to him, which I think really suits this kind of evil tyrant.
I think you're absolutely right, man. So much of this is in the way he carries himself and the aura he creates. Sometimes it's by speech. Sometimes it's the fact that he's, beating someone up. But other times it can just be a facial expression or just the way he looks at someone. And it's just, there's absolutely no doubt who is in charge here. Even the way that people slowly walk up to him, it's because they don't know what he's going to do. He's completely unpredictable. And so he just has that kind of aura of a man. You can never really know what their next move is, but you know that you're completely at their mercy. And Mammootty does that kind of physical presence as good as anyone, and maybe better than just about everyone. I think so.
That's really his sort of, the more we've sort of seen him, his strength is, I think, really that he can just sort of we've always said from the first movie we saw from him, you just want to watch him. And that's regardless of what he's doing, whether he's playing a good role, bad role, beating somebody up or spitting on somebody or, or playing something really emotional and sort of heartfelt as well. So it's pretty incredible. It's funny that seeing with the sort of, I guess, the direction and sort of the imagery which he's using, because I think that's a really important part. There's there's bullhorns. if you see, it's and it's like that. I don't know if he's implying that, the devil's nature or something like that.
I think it is. I think it is. I think it's very, very pointed.
Deliberate.
It's because it's just framed so perfectly.
Really well. And with him, with sort of again Tommy sort of massaging him in the back, and it's just again sort of in the background in the shadows. But it's interesting to me to Tommy's relationship with him because it starts to evolve so much, and we'll probably get more into that master slave, I guess, concept as we sort of see some more of the scenes, because I think some of the other ones express that even a little bit more, I think.
I think so.
It's a crush for this movie, but I think I do appreciate this because I think at this point it's still early on in the movie, but it does a great job of, the movie's only 2 hours. It's not a long movie, but in a very quick time, it lets us know how much, I guess, influence Patel has on the society, which is why I think it's that shot with the wife and the kid is also important, because it just shows that it's almost this is going to impact generations,
generational impact.
So
yes, that's right. It's
that's what I thought.
100%.
Okay, the kid it stays on both the mother and the kid to just show that grief. And yeah, again, the intimacy that this movie has to the pain, I think, is just really, really good. And I think, just having no music is just such a great decision. Except for, I think there's only one at the very end, which is used for another purpose. But in terms of just like everything else, it's just like, oh my God, like complete silence. You just hear the sounds of like, farm animals and, movement of like, I don't know, maybe it's some wind or something like that. But it's really silent. You almost have to, like, you almost have to like be attentive to what is actually happening in the background because there's not much.
No, there's not. And it's great because, again, as you're saying, it puts the focus on kind of the characters who are central to this, but also helps terrifically with the world building, right? You're, again, just reminded this is a small rural town. There are cows walking across your screen. There's roosters crowing in the background. Like, it gives you a real sense of time and place.
Correct, man. So, yeah, just so much art. There's so much attention to detail in this movie. I think that the directors really put into like there's so many layers you can just sort of peel and see sort of what the director has sort of done to sort of create this like I guess a landscape, I mean also like the physical landscape, but just sort of the landscape for the movie's point of view, like by having these small little icons here and there, and so having the settings, the clothing, even down to like Mammootty's like fierce mustache, like it looks like it's it's well, no one else has that in the society. He has a real thick, and that's like the especially back before, like that's the symbol of like a man, like that's that the mustache,
masculinity.
It symbolizes that, and his is like thick and bushy and like menacing. It's not like a Migo one.
Yes. No, that's right.
Yeah, man, it's pretty good so far. Let's keep going with this one. Oh, man, the sinister plot.
Yeah. Okay, I know. I remember this.
Him and his gun.
Just loves this thing.
Again, it's so subtle, but you see how he's on the ground and he's on the chair, like just that master.
Excellent point. Yes.
Yeah. And he's just toying with him.
It's just like his life means nothing.
Just reminding him, because always reminding him consistently, like, hey, I can end you now.
Yes.
സരോജക്ക എന്തെങ്കിലും കുടിക്കാൻ തരണേ.
കഞ്ഞി തരട്ടോ?
ഉപ്പിടണ്ട.
This guy also acted phenomenally, man. Like
he played this role like as well as you could expect. Yeah. Again, it's just about these silent exchanges.
Yeah, so much is just non-verbal, right?
Yeah.
ಇದನ್ ಕೊಡಿರಿ. ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ ಏನೂ ತಗೊಂಡಿಲ್ವಲ್ಲ?
This relationship is so fascinating.
This is, I think it's the relationship that's most key to him and affects him the most. Oh.
വേണ്ടി വായടക്കണ നാറി.
ಅಯ್ಯೋ ಅಯ್ಯಯ್ಯೋ ದೇವ್ರೇ, ಅಯ್ಯಯ್ಯೋ ಬಸಪ್ಪ ಬೈರಯ್ಯ ಓಡಿ ಬಂದ್ರು.
ಇಲ್ಲದ ತರಲೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಡ, ಅವನು ಸಾಯ್ತಾನೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ನೀ ಅವನನ್ನು ಅರಬ್ಬಿ ಮಜಲಿಗೆ ತಗೊಂಡೋಗಿ, ನಾನು ಕೋವಿ ತಗೊಂಡು ಬರ್ತೇನೆ, ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಹೂಳಿ ಬಿಡೋಣ.
ಅವನಿಗೆ ಯಾರು ಇಲ್ಲ, ಎನ್ನ ಕೊಲ್ಲಲ್ಲ.
ನೀವಿದೇನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ? ನಾನಿದನ್ನು ಒಪ್ಪೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಕೂಡಲೇ ಅವನನ್ನು ಆಸ್ಪತ್ರೆಗೆ ತಗೊಂಡೋಗಿ.
Man, I just want to explore a little bit about this relationship between the, I guess, Saroja and Patel, because like it's so fascinating. It's like, because I think the point you brought up earlier is really, really important, man, about how there's that short little snippet with the priest when you mentioned that there is a different side to him. And I think we sort of see that because like he wouldn't miss shooting her from that range, you know, like typically like he doesn't have any hesitation. We just saw the scene before, like he, you know, he's very precise in what he does. You know, he doesn't really miss. So there's something, clouding his judgment, or you know, making him, I guess, maybe not comfortable with what he's doing right now, or not fully at peace, which makes him miss such a, you know, you would think such a simple shot. You know, like you wouldn't expect him to miss like that and hit somebody else. Like it's so that is sort of, I feel like there's a layer there which we should probably explore a little bit. It's just fascinating.
I think it's absolutely true. Like, I think he's always uncomfortable with the idea of wanting to kill his wife. I think he thinks it needs to be done, but he's not 100% convinced that that is necessary. And even asking why he wants to do that, it's basically because she nags him and tells him, you know, what he can't do. And he tells Tommy at some point in the movie when they're going hunting together, I don't like it when people tell me what to do. And I think she's the only one who's kind of, even though she's afraid of him as well, she kind of tells him no sometimes. Like when he says, let Tommy die, and she's like, no, take him to the hospital. And he doesn't say no. Like she's kind of the only person who can stand up to him and maybe tell him the error of his ways. And that reminds him that maybe he's not doing the right thing. And that's why he wants to get rid of her, because he doesn't want someone telling him he's acting immorally. He just wants to be able to do what he wants and not be held accountable. And yet she does nice things, like the fact that she gives him water as well when he didn't ask, or the drink. I think that's what saves her, because he knows that she cares about him despite everything he's done. She knows that he goes around sleeping with other women and all of that. Like she can't be like, she must know that that's happening. And yet she still takes care of him, brings him lunches and everything. And I think, so there is maybe a degree of love there. And it's really her death that starts his kind of downward spiral a lot, I think. And we might get to that later. But I think that this is a genuine relationship that he has, and really the only one that he really has throughout the course of his film. You see that he loves his son, but that's just like a real short snippet. And like, of course, that's his son. He's going to take care of him. But I think there is an additional layer there in terms of a genuine affection for his wife. Definitely. That is real. No,
definitely. It's like, it's definitely affection, but I think there's such an internal conflict within Patel's character, and that's sort of shown with sort of his wife Saroja's basically role, I think, because she's really the only one that has any influence on him at all. Now, I don't know if that's something that he fears, because he has to be the one in control all the time. Like he's got to be the top. And if she, I don't know if she, because that scene, I want to include that little last bit at the end when she makes a decision and says, you know, no, let's take him to the hospital. She's kind of overriding him. Like she's kind of like, you know, like, no, this is my decision. We're going to save him, not going to kill him. And I think the scene after that, it's when she's sort of shown as kind of more, I guess, prominent, because she goes to the house and, you know, and then she's dressed up and she's like the leader. Like, it's almost like she's taking the role of like, you know, I'm the queen of the town, where something like that, you know, like it feels like she does not give him, like if he's the king, then, you know, you see the queen also has power. It's like she's not given any power at all. Like she's just basically in the house the whole time and taking commands. And she sort of feels like she should have more. So I don't know if that's why he sort of wants to kill her as well, because as you said, it's like He thinks that this is something that has to be done. I don't like being told what to do, and he has no regard for life, but he obviously does for his wife, which he can't admit to himself that he actually cares for her, and how it might affect him.
Yes.
That's just a fascinating scene.
And it's a fascinating scene and shows so much about their relationship, which gets fleshed out later. One thing that is also very obvious about this scene and needs, not much analysis at all is the fact that he cares nothing for Tommy's life at this point. I think that relationship evolves, but at this point, he is just a slave. He can kill him and no consequences, and he doesn't care. He's not rushing to his aid when he gets accidentally shot. Instead, he just feels guilty about maybe not having shot his wife or not being sure about whether he should kill his wife. There's no regard for Tommy at all. And I think that is always worth bearing in mind, that while there is this relationship, it's never one of affection or like care, although that might be a little bit different when we get towards the end. But at this point, it is pure subservience from Tommy, and he is just another pawn in the life of Patel, which I think is interesting because it does evolve a little bit potentially towards the end.
It definitely does transform it a little bit at the end. And I think you are right. At the point of his wife's death, and his life sort of, because he loses that, I guess he loses the master, or he loses the power or the allure of being a master anymore, I guess. So he doesn't have that anymore. He himself feels that he's lost that. But at this stage, it's complete. Just, he's like a slave. He's just subservient into exactly whatever
he is.
He wants, because he has a really strong connection with Suraja. And that relationship itself
which is also very interesting.
Is also super interesting, because it feels like at times like she's actually like kind of falling in love with him, like it feels like, or he with her. Yeah, because there's a whole scene where he's talking to his wife Omana, where he's saying,
where he's like, I had a dream about her and wish she was here or something. He says,
in this movie in terms of that, but he has a dream in terms of like he says like I dreamed and she was here and she was caressing me and I was on her lap, so it's like I don't know, because I feel like with Tommy's character, like I guess from this, it's very fascinating to explore this concept because I've not thought about it too much even before this, but the way it seems like, it's like, I feel like because he's always with Patel, he almost feels like he's an extension of him, and the only person that's close to him is his wife. So he has this sort of affection towards her as well. And from her side, I think she is like, I have somebody to share this sort of grief with me, and I have someone that sort of understands intimately what I go through, because you are going through it with me as well. Like you can actually see this guy and how he treats you. He treats me in a pretty similar way,
Yes. And neither of us are free to escape that, whether it's because she's attached to him, whether she has a child with him or whatever. For Tommy, it's because if he needs the land, otherwise he'd be kicked out and he wouldn't know where to go. They have no way of escaping. And so in a way they are both experiencing something very similar, and I don't know, they must take comfort in knowing that.